Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue our segment on examining Adeptus Mechanicus units. As I've already covered the HQ choices, I am now going to start moving on to troop choices. There is 4 choices available, and in this video I'm going to start by looking at the iconic Skitarii Vanguard. So these are one of the new units, obviously, when Adeptus Mechanicus got introduced, and they're quite iconic, along with the Rangers, who had these really cool cloaks and their armour and everything, and generally people went, wow, these are pretty cool units. I tried to refrain too much from referring to 7th during my review videos. However, I absolutely loved these models. They were fantastic and I used them a heck of a lot. There has been a lot of changes with Vanguard in terms of a lot of the rules. I'll go into that more when I sort of look at their usefulness and rules within the game later on. But to begin with, let's sort of have a look at their stats. So Skitarii Vanguard have movement 6, which is pretty average, obviously, for foot-slogging infantry. They have weapon skill 4, which is, average is, not bad. Not great, average, what can you expect? Bliss skill 3, awesome, always helpful. They are strength 3 and toughness 3, so they're basically guard on that sense, which is, really dependent if they're going to be in combat and obviously get shot at. Bolter's going to win them on 3s, which is not ideal, but again, they are just basic humans, sort of, well, robot humans, if you will. They have 1 wound apiece. They have 1 attack, though their alpha does have 2. Leadership 6, with the alpha being 7, and their save is 4+, so a wee bit better than guards, not as good as marines. So yeah, not bad stats, they're okay. For their points, I can hardly say I'm not unhappy with the stats. They are what they are and quite good. Now for their weapons, other than upgrades, they have 1 basic weapon that they go with, and it is the Radium Carbine. So what is the Radium Carbine? Well, it has a few nicknames. I won't say what they are, but we'll just say what the stats for them are. It is a range 18 weapon, so it is quite short range. If you're shooting at anything, you are going to be in the danger zone of being charged to a degree, provided that your opponent has the basic movement 6 and scores double 6 when charging. But still, it does have 18-inch range. It is an assault 3. It's 3 shots, and being an assault weapon means you can actually fire it after advancing. You just get -1 to your hit rolls. So yeah, we'll go into that in a wee second. Strength 3, last gunshot, not great, not bad. AP 0, average for your standard weapons. Damage 1. But they do have a special ability, which is each time you make a wound roll of 6+, for this weapon, the hit inflicts 2 damage instead of 1. So that's kind of handy if you are fighting against things that do have multiple wounds. Obviously, if they fail any of those 6s when you wound, then they're going to cause 2 damage, which is kind of nice, kind of helpful, kind of nice. So I'll go into some of their special weapons, what they can get. In a 5-man unit, you can choose to upgrade 2 of your Skitarii Vanguard to have special weapons. Now, with the Adeptus Mechanicus, I think there's 3 weapons you can choose from in the special weapons. They are the Arc Rifle, the Transonic Arquebus, excuse me if I pronounce that wrong, I've been doing it for probably years now, because I think they've been up 2 years, and also the Plasma Calver. The 2 that lead you to sort of want to go to Vanguard and do synergize quite well are the Arc Rifle, which is a 24-inch weapon, Rapid Fire 1, it is Strength 6, -1 AP and 1 damage. When attacking vehicles, this weapon has D3 damage. We've also got the Transonic Arquebus, which is, we'll go with the Plasma Calver. The Plasma Calver, when attacking this weapon, like any plasma weapon, you can choose which of the shots you wish to go for. So you got your standard, which is 18 inches, so it goes with the standard Radium Carbine. It is an Assault 2, Strength 7, minus 3 armour, 1 damage. You can supercharge it and it becomes Assault 2, Strength 8, minus 3, 2 damage. But on a roll of a 1, the bear is slain after all the weapon shots have been resolved. That's Plasma. It's kind of risky. It's nice that it's Assault 2 and its range synergises really well with the Radium Carbines. So that's really good. Couple other things, if you're 10 models or more, you can actually add on another one of those special weapons. I'm not going to talk about Transonic Arquebus, I'll explain later why. And one Skitarii can choose between taking an Enhanced Data Tether or an Omni Spec. I'll explain them in the special rules later. And the Vanguard Alpha can choose any of the melee weapons from the Adeptus Mechanicus melee weapon list, or replaces Radium Carbine with Adeptus Mechanicus pistol. I would go into these, but I won't at the moment. I'll go into their special rules. Now, the rules for Skitarii Vanguard, they have Canticles of the Messiah. Canticles of the Messiah are pretty much universal for all Admech forces. If you do not have that rule, basically you're going to, in your detachment, you're going to lose the Canticles of Messiah rule for your whole army. So it's handy everything in your detachment does have that ability, otherwise, what are you doing? They have Bionics, so the whole every modern unit has a 6-up invul. Hey, can't complain with an invul. They have Rad Saturation. Now what this does is this reduces the toughness of an enemy unit, other than vehicles, by 1 while they're within 1 inch of a Skitarii Vanguard unit. Kind of handy if you get them in combat. You know, you're lowering Marines down to 3, Imperial Guard down to 2, Elder down to 2, most cases. Kind of handy, puts a wee bit of scare, means you're going to be wounding Space Marines and 4s in combat, and Elder and Imperials, for instance, on 3s, which is kind of nuts, kind of handy, kind of cool. What Omni Spec does is enemy units do not receive benefit from saving throws and for being in cover when being shot at with a model with at least 1 Omni Spec. So I know cover has been a bit contested in this edition, how useful it is. I still find cover really, really handy, and I know Admech do because they've got Shroud Slam. But sometimes you can find sort of the heavier units will try and sit in cover for the entire game. I know I've fought Devastators where they just go, right, cool, we're going to be here. If you get your Vanguard in range of them, then you're going, ha, no cover for not too many points, it's not bad. An Enhanced Data Tether is you can reroll all failed morale tests for a unit. That includes a model with an Enhanced Data Tether. If you've got a large unit of Skitarii Vanguard, it's a real toss-up between the two of these because you obviously don't want to lose too many to morale, which is obviously tricky because if you start losing guys, it's not helpful. So you've really got to choose between, do you want to reduce your opponent's cover save, or do you want to be re-rolling morale tests when buying either one of those upgrades? So that is sort of the rules to special weapons, rules for the Skitarii Vanguard themselves, and their special rules that they get included. Now, what is the role of Skitarii Vanguard? Now, they appear to be sort of the forward advancing units for Admech. Very handy for your basic troops to move forward and take points and put a bit of threat onto the battlefield. The advantage, I'll talk about the weapons that I did talk about there because I think they're the ones that synergize well. So we begin with the Radium Carbine with the unit itself. Now, having Assault 3 is really handy, but they are 18 inches. Now, they really would benefit from a vehicle to get them into a prime position, give them that protection and move forward. Unfortunately, Admech don't have any dedicated transports yet. To live with that, we will have to probably move 6 inches. If your opponent's smart, when you sit 24 inches apart, they're going to make sure you're out of range. So you're going to have to advance with them. Now you can still fire, but you will be at -1 to your hit rolls. Not ideal on that side. However, you're still pumping out a whole load of shots. A basic 5-man squad will put out 15 shots with Radium Carbines alone. If you didn't advance, you know, about 12 of them going to hit. Strength 3 depends what you're firing at, but you're mostly going to need 5s or 6s to wound, and any of those 6s cause 2 damage. Still a bunch of shots for a small unit if you do get them in range undamaged. I still really like that. I'm not a big fan of advancing and then shooting. I really don't like the minuses to it. If you decide to go with your upgrade weapons, the arc rifle is quite cheap. Is it worth its points? Because it is a longer range weapon of 24 inches. It is rapid fire, so you need 12 to get the extra shot, and it's strength 6, -1 AP, and can cause D3 damage to a vehicle. Most vehicles you're still going to need 5s or 6s to wound anyway, and where a Radium Carbine will, on a 6, give you a solid 2 damage. You've got to ask yourself, how much of the upgrade do you want? After all, as they move into position, they're going to become a lot more vulnerable. So in terms of that rifle, I have not used it yet. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of times when you get like D3 on vehicles and you get 3 and you're like, yes, that was awesome. But there's also times when you're going to score 6 with the Radium Carbine and they fail their armor save, which on most vehicles I think is about 3+, unless you're like a really heavy vehicle, you're 2+, or your light vehicle, it's 4+, and you cause that 2 extra damage. You know, if you're putting out 15 shots and then 12, you know, let's say you didn't advance 12 hit and you get 2, maybe 3 or 6s and your opponent fails 2 of them, that's 4 wounds off a vehicle if you're lucky, and your opponent's going to be, wow, that was really annoying. So I can see some use for them in that side. In terms of if you're going after any sort of infantry models or anything like that, yeah, they can pump out shots and they can cause quite a bit of damage in that one, which is really handy. But if you're fighting anything with, let's say, a 2+ armor save, I would say don't fire. Yeah, you can, but you're probably not gonna cause much damage, especially against Terminators. But say you do get that 6 and they roll the 1, you kill a Terminator, great, but your opponent's probably gonna punish you for that one either way. So in terms of the other weapon you can use is the Transonic Arquebus. Keep it for Rangers, guys, I'll explain later. We'll go with Plasma Calver. Now obviously strength 7, -3 armor and 1 damage at standard, which is awesome. It's reduced in points significantly. I think it's 1 less shot than it was before, but having assault is quite cool in that one because you can move forward. You're hitting on 4s with strength 7, 2-shot strength 7 weapon with loads of off armor. Really cool. I think Plasma Calvers are still the go-to upgrade for Skitarii Vanguard. Some people have said for the points arc rifles are debatable, but I would still go with Plasma Calvers if so. However, if you decide to supercharge them, cool, you're braver than me. I'll just explain, obviously on 1s, when you're firing 2 shots at a time, your model dies. Now what I've learned basically to do with that is, and with all plasma weapons, I didn't realise until someone explained to me, is make sure you roll them individually, because if you roll 3 1s during that, you're essentially killing 3 models if you fast roll them 6 at a time, and you're not really designating. Well, if you roll them 1 model at a time, I know it's a bit tedious, and you roll double 1, you can go, well, is that just that 1 model? You know, double 1, he's gone, he's fried. But it won't affect the other guys. Well, it can be argued if you fast roll all of them, you might lose more. And so that's one way to play if you decide to supercharge it. One thing I'd warn you also in supercharging with an assault weapon is sort of how modifiers and rerolls work. Now if you do assault, you're essentially, you know, you've still got ballistic skill 3, but you're -1 to your hit rolls. Now rerolls are done before modifiers, I believe. So say you had a Tech Priest Dominus running alongside them, you know, say you took, you know, 5 units of Skitarii Vanguard, each with 2 Plasma Calvers in the unit. That's a lot of plasma coming to your opponent's way. That's a total of 12 shots. So if you're all in range of Tech Priest Dominus, you get to reroll your 1s. However, if you advanced with all those guys and you were supercharging, well, that's a bit different. What it is you're naturally going to be actually forced to hit, but when you take into account of rerolls, you only reroll so you roll to hit and you get a couple of 1s. You then get to reroll those 1s, and then after you've done your rerolls, then the modifiers apply. I believe that is the way it goes. So if you rolled any 2s there, you can't reroll them with Tech Priest Dominus, and they become 1s and you supercharge. So you're essentially becoming nearly a third of the time you're gonna overheat with plasma, and I think that's a huge risk if you decide to supercharge. I would only supercharge so much with Vanguard if I really needed to annihilate a unit and I was not in advancing, because I think that's just really risky. But you've got to really gauge the situation on that one. But just keep in mind that when you do actually do the rerolls, don't apply the modifiers first, you actually do your rerolls and then apply modifiers, and it makes those 2s really risky if you advance. It seems nice at the time, but I guess you're going to have to gauge the situation for yourself. The Omnispec and Data Tether, again, you're going to have to choose a situation for yourself. If you think you're going to be fighting against someone who is heavily nestled inside cover, then maybe go with that. But if you're going to think you're going to suffer real bad damage, well, you've got to really gauge the unit size. If you're taking 5-man squads, then I would probably just go with the Omnispec or none at all, because Data Tether, well, if you've taken significant damage, you're probably going to lose the rest of your guys, as you only have a leadership of 7 with an alpha. So Data Tether is only if you take them in big squads, and Omnispec is basically if you decide your opponent is going to abuse cover. Now, how would I run this squad personally? I would run them with 5-man squads. I don't see any real reason to take them in huge units, because your opponent will probably try and gun them down and then wither you down with morale. They're not the most survivable. They do take quite a bit of damage as they're only toughness 3 and 4 up armor save. So if your opponent decides I'm going to target them, they're probably going to go, and because they only have quite short ranged weapons, they are probably going to have to move out of cover, and they're probably going to have to move into a bit more vulnerable position themselves, which they were in the last edition as well. For me, I'm not sold on Vanguard this edition. I'm really not. And I loved them in the previous one because the rules were different. I think they had doctrines which basically could make them hitting on 2s, rerolling 6s, which with plasma was excellent. And their weapons, if I think you got a 6 to wound, it caused an additional 2 wounds or something, so you just threw wounds at your opponent like there was no business. And I've cleared out unbelievable amounts of guard and light infantry just from like a 5-man squad, and I'm just not seeing it anymore. I don't think Rad Saturation works very well. If you end up in combat, you're probably going to lose. You can upgrade your alpha, but again, he's only got 2 attacks and he's not the greatest, hitting on 4s, strength 3, toughness 3. I don't think he's going to carry, you know, the upgrade so well with him. So I think in combat, just avoid it. The Rad Saturation is a cool rule. You can synergize that with a couple of other of the more heavier units that attack in combat, such as infiltrators and rust stalkers, but that takes a wee bit of planning on your side as well. Generally, I would just go avoid combat like the plague. Stick to trying to stick on midfield, threaten your opponent's points if possible. So I would either run them as I did kind of before, which was take them 5-man squad, nice and cheap, just with Radium Carbines and maybe with an Omnispec if you feel like it, but I'm not really feeling it this time. And just, you know, throw wounds at your opponent, throw, you know, assault 3 at them and hopefully cause some damage, or take some plasma calver in there and cause some damage that way as well. I wouldn't really go up to 10-man squad with 3 plasma calvers. Again, as I said, your opponent's probably going to throw shots at them and try and break you with morale and cause some damage, and you might have to use command points to keep them alive for those plasma calvers. So that's how I would run Vanguard. I still think they're quite a cool unit, and for their points they are super cheap and can throw out a bunch of stuff. I just really wish there was a vehicle to maybe move them into position, because I think if you do them 2 units of 5, if there was a transport capacity of 10, 2 units inside there, which I believe you can do, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think that would open up a lot more options to then sort of move your transport into position and then turn to unload all these guys into a very, very good, you know, good position for them. But then again, I'm speculating that AdMech are getting transports in the future. I'll probably say that in just about every AdMech video until it comes true. So, I hope you learned something there, guys. I think it just shows my thoughts on Vanguard in this edition. Let us know what experiences you had with them, any awesome moments you have had with them as well. Please comment, share, like and subscribe as usual, and obviously check out our social media to see any future projects we're working on and also of the Warhammer community stuff. We also post up as well any sort of gossip or rumours that might be going on, exciting news. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.